Back now, just a quick warning if children are nearby, the next segment does cover adult topics, but unfortunately it is about what children are seeing when they go online.
Yes, but there are certain children that maybe might not want to be in the room to discuss this, so time to maybe send them out. Anyway, now most parents think that children first come across pornography around the age of 16 or 17, but in reality exposure often happens much earlier, in the early teens or even younger than that.
Colman Noctor is here to chat to us about this today. Colman, it's lovely to have
Colman.
you here. Thank you so much, because I know that you have written about this today. Is there a disparity between when adults think young people are seeing sexual images online and when they're actually seeing them?
Yeah, I think there is. And I think that the disparity comes from an adult belief that children or young people will have to go looking for pornography in order to find it. And so there's a large belief in parents that, well, my John wouldn't do that or my Jane wouldn't do that. And in reality, it's not always the case that children go looking for pornography, it's that pornography comes looking for them. So most young people I've spoken to have got it sent to them. It came through a pop-up. It was something that they clicked into accidentally and went down. So the algorithm-driven world that we live in means that it's not when your child will come across pornography, but that when pornography will come across them. And
there's a curiosity around it as well, I would imagine, in these sort of age groups. And with the ease of access of it, this is the problem, really, isn't it?
There is. Well, the problem is that it's actually becoming part of a child's life even before the curiosity. Okay. So we have a lot of children kind of pre-pubertal who haven't even hit kind of sexual hormones who are seeing this content. And
we're talking 8, 9-year-olds?
We're talking, as soon as a child has a smart device,
as a phone,
they're at risk of that.
As a parent's point of view, my daughter's now starting to go onto Google, and you're having to try and you're worried sick what you could type in, completely innocent, and you have to try and blur all the images, whatever else. But exactly as you say, these things pop up that you wouldn't even know what it is.
Yeah, and the worry is that pornography is becoming our children's teacher, or around a template of what intimate relationships look like. And again, when the curiosity... I mean, we wouldn't have had to have this conversation in the 80s or 90s because we didn't live in a world. We're saying we have to inform children much, much earlier now about the risks of this stuff. And I hate this conversation because it means we're shrinking childhood. But the world that we live in doesn't allow us to not have those conversations till later. Do you know what I mean? Because we have to prepare children for the world they live in rather than the ones we would like, the world that we'd like them to live in.
And we're going to get into how to talk to children about this, and unfortunately it is an early age. But a couple of years ago we had a sex educator on here. She was all about positive pornography and what it could be. But the world that we live in, it is a violent form and a degrading form of porn that is pushed towards people on the homepage of any sort of site that a child might find their way onto. I went onto one yesterday and it was shocking. It was violent. It was just violent imagery. It was really, really, really awful. So what does this mean to a child's brain if they're seeing a sexual relationship like this, a violent or degrading sexual relationship, as their first form of contact when it comes to intimacy between a couple?
I think a lot of parents worry that watching pornography will lead to a child becoming hypersexual and actually taking risks sexually. The opposite is the case in my therapy room. Most of the young people I talk to who've seen this material are terrified of becoming sexually active. They're terrified that this is what will be expected of me, this violent, non-consent, dominance. And what we're seeing is a kind of a maturity fear around, I actually don't want this as part of my life, or I don't want to, I had 2 boys recently described themselves as gynophobic, which is kind of fearful of women and girls, and it's about that comparison culture. The template of pornography is really damaging to young boys and girls, that I must look this way, I must behave this way. And, what pornography is it's a movie, not a documentary. But they don't understand the difference. Do you know what I mean? And it's really about getting that message clarity. And the reason why you're seeing these shocking topics is because the more taboo, the more sought after it is. Like, a healthy sexual relationship probably doesn't make for good pornography material, if that makes sense. It's almost that people are looking for those extremes. It plays with consent themes of incest, themes of, connection. And what pornography does is it omits every aspect of what intimacy is. Connection, communication, emotion, intimacy. They're nowhere to be seen in any of these scripts, if that makes any sense.
Do you think young people are using porn almost as an education tool and not realize, probably knowing that it's not real? But I would imagine what's available nowadays, what they can just click and look up online, you're not getting any, there's no resources nowadays. I would imagine sex education in school is fairly limited. So where else do you learn about what?
Well, it's not embarrassing because you can do it by yourself,
100%.
right? You don't have to sit in a classroom and have your teacher who's telling you about Cú Chulainn talk to you about the birds and the bees. You know, you can do it by yourself.
And then when they go onto these sites, of course, the first things they're coming across is stuff like strangulation or you know, things that shouldn't be happening in the bedroom.
Like if we were growing up in the 90s and we were offered an anonymous way of finding out about sex that we'd absolutely have gone for that, you know, rather than asking an older brother or cousin.
Yeah.
So it bypasses the discomfort. But what content they're getting, the template or the script of what they're getting
this is the problem.
so dangerous.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's
what you're
traumatic.
seeing. I mean, the top of your article is talking about some of the cases of young boys and some of the sexual violence that you're seeing from young kids to the likes of the age of 13. I mean, this is frightening, the impact that this is having on young children.
Yeah, and it's important to know that pornography, the emotional cost of it is the kind of fear and the anxiety that oftentimes can be. But there's compulsive pornography use as well. It's almost akin to gambling, you know, in terms of young people feeling the need to compel to go back and check this material, again, at very young ages. And that is accompanied by shame, guilt. You know, so there's a self-esteem, self-worth impact on this. Like, I think the influence of pornography on our young people's mental health, self-worth and self-esteem is something that we have no grasp of how intense that is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it really does. There's just one thing that Colman had in his article that I think is so interesting. It's an institute for addressing strangulation. This is an institute in collaboration with Bangor University found that 35% of 16 to 34-year-olds in Britain reported being strangled or choked at least once during consensual sex, alongside an increase in choking-related injuries being presented at hospitals. So much so that the British government, they're considering criminalising pornography and the depiction of strangulation or suffocation. This is what's parents have to be informed about they have to know what their kids could be seeing. So let's talk about what it's so hard for parents. What should they be doing? What's the first step here?
I mean, I think the most important part of it is trying to get that message clear that this is not a reflection of reality.
Yeah.
And again, and many young people, and especially older teenagers, will know that's the case, but it still has an influence on their belief systems, as evidenced by, you know, we still mimic pornography in some ways in our own intimate relationships, despite probably knowing that it doesn't feel right or that's wrong or whatever the case may be. But if everything that we're watching is showing 90% of it is this sort of stuff, we assume that 90% of people are doing this as well. Does that make sense? So the most important clarification is that this is a movie, not a documentary. And I can't tell you how important it is to get that message across. It's also important to know that the trauma is oftentimes being exposed to something that you're not socially, cognitively, or emotionally capable of taking on board or understanding or processing. So the event of viewing the pornography might be one thing. It's what's left afterwards. Gabor Mate talks about trauma. Trauma is not the event. It's the impact on the event on everything else that goes afterwards. Do you know what I mean? So what is the lens through which you see the world when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to that? And it's those things that are the parts that get distorted. So the conversation is really about not what did you watch and what was it like. It's about how has watching that made you feel about relationships, intimacy?
Okay.
And we have to include the pieces that porn omits. That connection, communication, emotional, like Esther Perel says, you know, sex is not a thing you do, it's a place that you go, you know, because it's an emotional experience. And young people who are watching pornography as a template for intimate relationships are not seeing that at all. And we need to bring that back into the conversation. Does that make sense? To kind of counter-narrative the dominant narrative of pornography.
What age do you think parents should discuss this?
You start off with everything is a spiral, Tommy. So you start with the very basics at a very small age, and as they get older, you include the kind of nuances in that. Okay. And many teenagers will go, la, 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 I don't want to hear this sort of stuff. It sometimes has to be a conversation. I'm going to say something to you. You don't need to respond. You just have to listen. Yeah. anything you see on that stuff is not a reflection of reality. That is not what will be expected of you in an intimate relationship. So you give the narrative, even though they might roll their eyes and walk away, that information does go in, and it is important that we have the conversation, for sure.
Colman's article is in the Examiner, the Irish Examiner today. It is incredibly interesting, but Colman kept on saying, does that make sense to us? And we know that this is an incredibly hard, awkward and terrifying topic for so many people. So he has very kindly agreed to stick around to answer your questions, whether it's in relation to this topic or anything else that you would like to talk about. We're keeping him here, our psychotherapist. And this is the thing, because you say January is a very busy month for people trying to get on top of their mental health.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
The discomfort of the conversation will be nothing to the discomfort you experience at the risk of not having the conversation.
Totally,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's really interesting what they've done over in Britain is add age verification. And actually, Ofcom has reported a massive decrease in traffic of viewing pornography websites. And you talk about this, that we have to start regulating it.